Beep, beep. Welcome to the Court of the EDI Jester. How are we, everybody? Please do come and join us on the Warrior Teacher Program. Buy me a coffee, usual stuff, right? Okay, so some of you will be familiar and some of you probably will not with a gentleman called Jonathan Haidt, or John Haidt, he goes under. Now, I've got an article here which goes back a while, but somebody sent it to me and said, this is particularly interesting, and I think they were absolutely right to do so. So it goes back into last year, but it's certainly appropriate still today, even if it was March last year in which it was written. John Haidt has written a book called The Coddling of the American Mind. If you haven't read it, I suggest that you do, because it applies equally to the UK as it does to the US. Lots of the stuff I talk about in there is amazing, isn't it? This thing about all these men of a certain age who think the same thing, and they've got there through their own independent thought. See, that's how collaborative works, isn't it? It's not a collective top-down idea, it's a collaborative grassroots movement. And I find that quite exciting. I don't know whether you do, but I think it's exciting. So in May 2014, a guy called Greg Lukianoff invited me to lunch to talk about something he was seeing on college campuses that disturbed him. Greg is the president of FIRE, F-I-R-E, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expressions. Well, the link is in the doobries for you, and the link for this is within the link I've sent you. So he has worked tirelessly since 2001 to defend the free speech rights of college students in America. That almost always meant pushing back against administrators who didn't want students to cause trouble and who justified their suppression of free speech, which appeals to the emotional safety of students, appeals that students themselves didn't buy. So there's well, in order to keep the students safe, we can't have free speech. That's the totalitarian garbage that you'd expect, isn't it? But in late 2013, Greg began to encounter new cases in which students were pushing to ban speakers, punish people for ordinary speech, or implement policies that would chill free speech. These students arrived on campus in the fall of 2013 already accepting the idea that books, words, and ideas could hurt them. So they got it from school. Right? So that if they arrived in 2013 and they're 18, you can go back, say, 10 years. They started doing this in 2003, this Freirean teaching, right? Swine, okay? There was little sign of such beliefs, John continues, in 2011. Greg is prone to depression, and after hospitalization for a serious episode in 2007, Greg learned CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. In CBT, you learn to recognize when your ruminations and automatic thinking patterns exemplify one or more of about a dozen cognitive distortions, such as catastrophizing, black and white thinking, fortune telling, or emotional reasoning. Thinking in these ways causes depression, as well as being a symptom of depression. Breaking out of these painful distortions is a cure for depression. What Greg saw in 2013 were students justifying the suppression of speech and the punishment of dissent using the exact distortions that Greg had learned to free himself from. As an educator, this is really interesting to me, right? There's a great person on Twitter called Dr. P. Psych or something, who's a psychologist of many years standing. Don't know who they are, but they post great stuff, right? So I've sent them a message saying, time for a chin whack. I want to talk to this person. I think they're really interesting. So we'll see, but it's something similar going on here with Greg saying that that cognitive behavioral therapy is what was seen by Greg Lukianoff as an alternative to the Marxist Freirean power and oppression narratives that these children have been fed by activist teachers since they were about 12. He thinks CBT is the way out of it. Now, that's really interesting to me, right? Really interesting to me, because I'm very concerned by, as most people know, education is my thing, right? So I want to know, where's the line? So I messaged this psych person and said, let's have this time for a chat. I want to know where's the line, right? Where's the line where psychology takes over from education? And right now, what provision is there for education in preventing this? So when do we call it education, and when does it become psychology? When does it become therapy? Where's that line? Because I think the first triage is educational, but it's interesting. let's go back into Greg's thinking and what happened to him back in March, or what he's written about, John's written about back in March. Students were saying that an unorthodox speaker on campus would cause severe harm to vulnerable students. There's catastrophizing right there. They were using their emotions as proof that a text should be removed from a syllabus. That's emotional reasoning. They're not well. Greg hypothesised that if colleges supported the use of these cognitive distortions rather than teaching students skills of critical thinking, which is basically what CBT is. There it is. Come on, draw the line, John. Then this could cause students to become depressed. Greg feared that colleges were performing reverse CBT. That's exactly what they're doing. Frank Ferretti wrote about this 25 years ago in Therapy Cultures. Right? I thought the idea was brilliant because I had just begun to see these new ways of thinking among some students at New York University. I volunteered to help Greg write it up, says John, and in August 2015 our essay appeared in The Atlantic with the title The Coddling of the American Mind. And there's the generation of one of the most important books, educationally and psychologically, that's been released on this particular issue. And again, where's the line? John, where's the line? Greg did not like that title. His original suggestion was Arguing Towards Misery, How Campuses Teach Cognitive Distortions. He wanted to put the reverse CBT hypothesis into the title. After our essay came out, things on campus got much worse. The fall of 2015 marked the beginning of a period of protests and high-profile conflicts on campus that led many or most universities to implement policies that embed this new way of thinking into campus culture with administrative expansions such as bias response teams to investigate reports of microaggressions. Surveys began to show that most students and professors felt that they had to self-censor. The phrase walking on eggshells became common. Trust in higher ed plummeted. That's happened over here too, John. That's happened over here too. Along with the joy of intellectual discovery and sense of goodwill that had marked university life throughout my career. His career, not mine. Greg and I decided to expand our original essay into a book in which we delved into the many causes of the sudden change in campus culture. Our book focused on three great untruths that seemed to be widely believed by the students who were trying to shut down speech and prosecute dissent. And these were the three truths. What doesn't kill you makes you weaker. Always trust your feelings is the second one. And the third one is life is a battle between good people and evil people. That's pure power, oppression, Marxist, cultural Marxist narratives there. Pure power and oppression narratives. From the Freirean school of education. I ask again, where's the line? Where's the line? And I think we have to go back. I mean, John said it himself in the article. In 2013, these students arrived that were nutters. They've gone completely mad. They've been taught to be mad by schools. So in 2013, you've got to go back at least 10 years. So in 2003, they started teaching these kids to be nutters. Well, we've got to get the kids before they do this again. Right? So we need to start teaching this before they get the teachers that are teaching them are lying. They're liars and nutters. Right? How are we going to do that? There is so much work to do on that front, and the only way to do it is one person at a time. Now, I read Jonathan's book long before I put together the Warrior Teacher Program, but there's an awful lot of crossover in what we're doing. In what we're doing. There's an awful lot of crossover in how we learn to deal with people on a one-to-one basis, and I still maintain that the only way that we will change this culturally, not lawfully, not politically, the only way that we change this culturally is one person at a time. Come join us. Let's do it. I'll see you later.